Some of the best advice that I ever received, I received at an OCF, an Orthodox Christian Fellowship gathering in college, where the priest there told us that if ever we're asked, how are you doing? Don't just say fine. We have a tendency in our culture to say fine and keep moving, whether we're fine or not. But instead to say, thank God, because it can always be true. Even if we're a little down, we can still say, thank God. And so one of the biggest things that we can do as we work on healing is thanking God. And I say thanking God or giving thanks on purpose as opposed to being thankful, because they're two different things. Being thankful is a feeling. We might not always feel thankful, but even if we don't feel thankful, we can still give thanks to God. In her book, Under the Laurel Tree, Dr. Nicole Rokas, who was the women's retreat speaker here at St. John just a couple of years ago, wrote very beautifully, and I've shared this quotation before, but it bears being repeated again and again. But she says very, very beautifully in her book, the Bible doesn't actually command us to be thankful, but to give thanks to God in all circumstances. This isn't a feeling, but an action. It is not a means of forgetting or masking our pain, but learning to truly dwell and act within the full spectrum of the pain and joy granted to us in this life. Thanksgiving is about gathering ourselves from the scattered corners of our sorrow and presenting our whole being in thank offering to our Creator. As we do so, Thanksgiving enables us to reclaim our God-given freedom in the face of struggles that can seem outside our control and outside of God's providence. Giving thanks to God then becomes a source of victory. It becomes a place where we are actually able to take our pain, take our sorrow, and to offer them to God in an offering of thanksgiving from our heart. It becomes an opportunity for great victory. And St. John Chrysostom, on his sermon where he talks about Job, he actually says, has the devil filled you with sorrow on account of some harm he has brought upon you? Make him sad by thanking God. And so if we feel sorrowful, and it's something that perhaps like Job has been brought upon us, or we feel like it's been brought upon us, the way to fight back is to thank God. And another theologian from way back in the 20th century, which feels like a long time ago now, doesn't it? Father Alexander Schmemann, in his journals, he actually said that if you aren't able to give thanks, you aren't able to truly live. Why? Well, if we're not giving thanks, chances are we're filled with anger, we're filled with bitterness, we're filled with resentment. Those things are sins. And we know from the scripture that the wages of sin is death. And so if we're filling our heart with anger, if we're filling our heart with bitterness, if we're filling our heart with resentment as opposed to thanksgiving, then instead of leading to life, we are leading ourselves on a path to destruction and ultimately to death. And so giving thanks is a fundamental attitude that we are able to have and to be able to share in the victory of Christ. And in fact, the thing that we've been missing the most perhaps during this pandemic has been the Eucharist, our ability to participate in the body and blood of Christ. And of course, the Eucharist, that Greek word, literally means thanksgiving, to give thanks. And so as we wrestle with even preparing our hearts for the reception of the body and blood of Christ, not only now, but perhaps in any time, we should maybe ask ourselves, am I ready to give thanks? Am I ready to thank God for whatever it is that is going on in my life? And if I'm not, then perhaps I need to prepare a bit more for the reception of the great offering of thanksgiving that we make on the holy table during the Divine Liturgy itself. One of the best, biggest places for us to be able to find healing is when we are able to thank God. We don't have to be thankful. That's just a feeling. But you can still thank God. And in that action of giving thanks to God, of taking a strike at the devil, like St. John Chrysostom says, we are able to really find healing by simply saying two words, thank God.